Hello, I'm Sean Leonard and I'm here to tell you about the brewing process. In its most basic form, brewing is using fermentation to create ethanol. Merriam-Webster's dictionary defines brewing as to prepare by steeping, boiling, and fermentation, or by infusion and fermentation. Now there's different types of fermentation. There's malt sugars, which come from wheat, barley, oats, and rye, which are very common but have varying complexity in how to make them into ethanol. They're also more expensive than cider production given this extra complexity. Ciders, on the other hand, are extremely simple and very easy to convert into ethanol. Mead is another form of brewing. However, given that honey is a rather expensive material to start with and it's a very slow process, it's not very often used in industrial brewing. The next step in the brewing process is the development of sugars in a process called malting. Now all grains have to be malted as their sugar is trapped in starches within the grains. This is an enzymatic process, and it's done by enzymes that slowly break down the starches into sugars that can be digested by yeast. However, this process isn't necessary for fruit sugars and honey. After you've created your malt, or if you skip that step, you can then go into the dilution of the sugars into what's called wort. Wort is sugar dissolved in water. That's easier for yeast to digest. After you've created your wort, most brewers will then check the specific gravity of the wort. Specific gravity is the measurement of the weight of water versus the weight of the wort. The reason this is done is it allows a brewer to decide how much sugar is in the wort and also potentially estimate how much ethanol will be created in the process. After the specific gravity is taken, yeast is added to the wort to begin the fermentation process. Fermentation is the process of yeast multiplying in the wort and creating ethanol. It's an exothermic process, and for that reason, wort must be kept cold while it's fermenting. Now, while the yeast is consuming sugar, it produces ethanol and CO2, with ethanol being the chief product that most people are looking for. Another byproduct of the fermentation process is what's referred to as brewer's yeast, or excess fermentables, and natural carbonation of the liquid, or just excess CO2, depending on if it's being made into a beverage or not. Originally, the fermentation process was important as it allowed preservation of excess grain and fruit at the end of the season. However, the beverage industry nowadays uses it to create many beverages such as beer, cider, etc. Also, brewing is important for sustainable future designs such as fuels and detergents made from ethanol as well as animal feed. Brewing is a very simple biological process that some people do as a hobby in order to make beer or cider, but it also can be used in a large industry in order to make beverages for a large number of people as well as animal feed. It's rather simple and sustainable and creates a large number of useful byproducts such as CO2 and brewer's yeast that can be used in other industries.